warning after warning didn't stop famine from gripping Gaza. From aid blockades to attacks, CNN has deconstructed how step by step parts of Israel's military campaign led to this famine by choking off food and water to the population of Gaza. And each finding we've put to the IDF.
So just to be clear, you're saying there is not famine in Gaza, according to the Israeli military?
Well, we're understanding there's a difficult situation on the ground.
But a difficult situation is different from famine.
We do not think there is famine.
Let's go back to October 7th, 2023. Hamas attacked Israel, killing civilians and taking hostages. 2 days later, Israel's then defense minister ordered this.
אנחנו מטילים מצור מוחלט על העיר עזה. אין חשמל, אין מזון, אין מים, אין דלק. הכל סגור. אנחנו נלחמים בחיות אדם ואנחנו נוהגים בהתאם.
The same day, Israel cuts off these 3 water pipelines, supplying Gaza's main cities for weeks, later reopening some, but they would be damaged repeatedly. It was one of several attacks on Gaza's water supply. Israel stopped electricity, feeding wastewater treatment plants like this one, leaving them to dry out over the course of the war. A desalination plant making seawater drinkable before and then bombed to pieces. Soldiers even filmed themselves rigging a water reservoir with explosives and blowing it apart. The IDF justified attacks like these, saying Hamas embeds in civilian infrastructure.
There are some in the international community that have accused you of weaponizing water in this war against civilians. What is your response?
Millions of liters of water are entering Gaza daily. We're speaking about Israeli water entering Gaza daily.
When 90% of people in Gaza do not have enough water, according to the UN, this is a situation that is clearly very, very dire. Are you disputing that situation?
I am giving the facts on the ground as they are. Israel is bringing in millions of liters of water to Gaza daily. Israel has made an active decision, one active decision regarding water in Gaza, which is to make sure there's water in Gaza. And we are investing
millions. That is not the only decision,
and manpower to bring water into Gaza.
Inaccurate.
There is currently, as we are speaking, millions of liters going into Gaza
yes,
daily
you have made
from
that
Israel.
point.
That is an active decision.
It's also an active decision on October 9th, 2 days after the start of this war, to shut off water pipelines, 3 of them, the main water pipelines, into the Strip. Is that not also an active decision?
I'm speaking about the facts on the ground and what happened.
But the Israeli military campaign didn't just impact water. In the first weeks of war, as IDF tanks rolled into Gaza from the north, farmland was bulldozed. Again, Israel called it a military necessity. Since then, the UN says 90% of all cropland has been damaged. Green and fertile land, shown here pre-war, growing fruit and vegetables, now in 2025 turned to dust. Israel's military campaign also limited the aid, including food, entering the Strip. Gaza relied heavily on this aid before the war, but now needs it even more. Aid organisations have said at least 500 trucks should enter Gaza daily to stop starvation worsening. Israel has rarely met this number since the war started. We broke it down using their own data. Between October 21st, 2023, the first aid delivery into Gaza, and February of this year, an average of 183 aid trucks entered Gaza daily. Then Israel imposed a 3-month blockade. March 2025, no trucks. April 2025, the same. From May until August this year, an average of 115 trucks have entered Gaza every day. That's around 20% of the level aid agencies say is needed. Always vulnerable, it pushed Gaza towards famine very quickly. November 2023, 1 month into war, experts were already declaring food insecurity for some segments of the population at level 4, emergency, just 1 step away from level 5, famine. The IDF, however, insists they are and have always done enough.
Since day one in this war that began as an existential war, Israel said and has acted in the same way. We put hundreds of people, hundreds of millions of shekels into making sure that aid is going into Gaza. I'm not saying there is no problem, I'm just saying the problem is complex. It is not Israel preventing aid going into Gaza. The problem is Hamas looting the aid.
You mentioned Hamas looting this aid, and I think it's worth me bringing up that there was a US government review into this exact question. They reviewed 156 incidents and they found no affiliation with Hamas.
Well, I think first of all, the UN speaks about almost 90% of the aid that they're bringing in being looted.
They don't say by Hamas, sir.
The aid is speaking about almost 90% of their aid being looted.
The UN review found very little aid is delivered and said it is due in part to peaceful and hungry people intercepting it. When food does make it in, Israel's military campaign at times attacked it, from bakeries to warehouses, and even the aid trucks themselves repeatedly hit by Israeli gunfire.
They had a pre-agreed route and they were attacked before they could deliver that food to northern Gaza.
Well, there's been some tragic incidents throughout 2 years of war that we have investigated, that people were held accountable, that we communicated with the international organizations and learned from them. But I think all in all, throughout the 2 years, Israel's done everything we can.
But the attacks prompted outrage from humanitarian leaders who pulled out of many deliveries as a result.
In 30 years of humanitarian work, I have never encountered such blatant disregard for the protected status of humanitarian workers, facilities and operations under international law.
Food that was delivered was under Israeli military supervision, and collection could be deadly. This gunfire is the IDF firing what they claimed were warning shots in the air while civilians attempted to collect food. More than 100 people would die in this single incident, according to Gaza's health ministry. Bodies can be seen strewn amid the crowds. Incidents like these would only grow more frequent as aid sites became harder and harder to reach. The UN previously operated hundreds of distribution centres with partners across Gaza. The IDF told us these all remain in place. But the UN said by May this year, Israel's siege forced all of them to stop operating. Now, only 3 US-backed centres are acting as the main distribution sites. While 2 more are promised, currently there are just 2 in the south and 1 in central Gaza. For someone in the north of Gaza, that's roughly a 3-hour walk to the nearest site. These centres are also in the middle of active combat zones, drawing civilians into further danger. This site just half a mile from this Israeli military base. The Israeli military claims they only fire warning shots or when people are viewed as a threat. But in the last 3 months, nearly 2,000 people have been killed trying to get food, most near these aid sites, according to the UN. Aid agencies and their truck drivers say Israel is now creating delays and restrictions on the aid allowed to enter Gaza. Israel, however, blames the aid agencies for slowing the process.
Is Israel accepting any responsibility for the deteriorating humanitarian situation in Gaza right now?
Israel has been tracking the situation in Gaza and has been doing everything we can to improve it and to bring aid going into Gaza.
And the IDF continues to insist there is enough food in Gaza, even now.
I've been there and seen it with my own eyes. People are picking up part of the food and leaving the rest of the food on the floor because they're not interested in it.
But the evidence says otherwise. The international body classifying food insecurity now says famine has set in much of Gaza. Katie Bولغليس, CNN, London.